Hi, this is Toby, and in today's video I'll show you how to code a time range breakout EA for MetaTrader 5 so you can achieve results like this one for yourself. Okay, let's go. So this here is my master EA, my own EA, and of course our EA won't have a graphical user interface like this one, but we will create an expert advisor that is basically able to generate the same trades like the strategy here. And as you can see, the strategy here runs on a live account for over 1 year now, and I'm pretty happy with the performance. And you will see that the logic behind the strategy is pretty simple. Okay, let's switch to MetaTrader 5 now. Okay, so here we are in the MetaTrader 5 platform. And before we start coding, I want to say, if you are new to mql5, you may check out my previous videos on mql5 coding. We did a simple time entry EA and also a simple moving average crossover EA, because this EA will be a little bit more complex to code, and if you're new, you may check out the previous videos. Okay, but now let's take a look at the logic of this EA. So we will have a simple time range. So let's say our range starts here, for example, and ends here. And now what the EA will do is simply to save the highest price of this range, for example here, and also the lowest price for this range. And now if we break above the highest price after the range, we will take a buy trade. And of course, if we break below the range, we will take a sell trade. So in this case, we would buy right here. And the EA will also have a close time where we close all positions here, for example, and in this case our buy trade would be closed here in profit. So that's the simple logic of this EA. Okay, so let's switch to the meta editor and start coding. Okay, so let's create a new expert advisor. So click on new, top left corner, expert advisor template. Let's name it time range EA. Click on next. Next, finish. And now the first step I like to do is to clean up a little bit, because I just don't like the formatting from meta quotes here. But this, of course, is a personal preference. The gray text is just a comment, so it's actually not important for the code to run, but it's for the programmer to describe what the code is about. Okay, we also don't need the last line here. Okay, so let's start with the input variables. So we copy this comment section here, create a new one, and we call it inputs. Inputs. And now, of course, we want a input for the start time of the range. So we write input integer, input range start. And we also redefine this variable with 600, for example. And we also write a comment behind this variable. And let's just write range start time in minutes. Okay, so why we use a integer type for the time input? It's because we enter the start time of the range in minutes after midnight. Because as a lot of people, when they code a range time-based EA, for example, they use maybe string inputs for the start hour, and they have another input for the minute. But I don't like this option. So we have one input for the start time, and we will have another one for the end time. And this way we minimize the number of inputs, and it's later also easier for optimization and stuff. So I like to do it this way. And another input we need, of course, is the end time of the range. And the end time of the range, we will define it by the duration. So we also use a integer type. We write input range duration maybe. Because now the range end is defined by the start time plus the minutes we enter here in the duration variable. So let's say if we want a range of 2 hours, we would just enter 120 minutes. So we also write a comment here in minutes. Okay, and then of course we want a close time. So input integer input range close, and we predefine this variable with let's say 1200. Okay, we also write a comment range close time. So of course this is a little bit it's not that intuitive to enter the times, but you will get used to it. So 600 would be 10 o'clock, for example, because it's minute after midnight, and 120, the range is 2 hours long, and we will close the trade in the evening at 8 p.m. Okay, and maybe we write time minutes here also. So now we also need a input for the lot size, because the user, of course, should be able to change the lot size. So input double and input lots, and we predefine it with 0.01. We write a comment lot size, and we also want a input for the magic number of this expert advisor, because later when we close the trades, we want to filter by the magic number, so we don't close trades from other EAs or trades we did manually. So we write input, and this will be a long variable type, input magic number. We predefine it, for example, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And this can, of course, be any number. You just have to make sure that this number here is unique for the MetaTrader 5 platform. Okay, we write a comment, magic number. Okay, that's for the input. Okay, now let's first of all compile to see if we got any errors. Everything looks fine here. So what I'd like to do next is to check the inputs from the user, because we don't want wrong inputs, of course, in our EA. So to prevent this from happening, we can go to the onInit function. This function is called once the EA starts. And if you want to know more about the function, you can always highlight it or select it and press F1 on your keyboard. And this will bring up the meta quotes help. And there's also an example in most of the time. So let's just write a simple if statement for the inputs. We start with the magic number. So the magic number is wrong if it's below or equal to 0. So if that is the case, we want to display maybe a message to the user. Let's use the alert function for this. Magic number below or equal 0. And we also want the EA to stop at this point. So we just write return and init parameters incorrect. Okay, so that's it for the magic number. We also want to check the lots inputs. So we just change this to input input slots, and if the lots are below 0, it's of course a wrong input, but also, so we write or input lots is, let's say, greater than 10, which is a lot of money. Maybe we change that to 1, because I don't think one of you will trade more than 1 lot. So, and if you do, you can change this number, of course, but it's for the safety for now. So we write lots. Or greater than 1. Okay. We compile. Okay, perfect. So now let's take a look at the range start input. We again copy and paste, and we now use the range start input. So for the range start input, this should not be below 0, but of course it can be 0, so that would be midnight. And the range start should not exceed or be equal to 1440, because these are the minutes of 1 day. Also, let's write here range start is below 0, like this. We do the same for the duration. So the duration cannot be 0, and it also needs to be below this number here. Okay, we also write here range duration like this. Okay, now we only need to check the close time. The close time can be 0, but of course it can't exceed this number here. Close time below 0. Okay, let's compile. Okay, and what we also want to check is that the close time here is not equal to the start time plus the range duration. So we just added this if statement here, or the input range start plus the input range duration is equal to the input range close. And of course, this here can exceed the minutes of the day. So we need to add a modulo like that. So this should do the trick. And of course, we want to edit the message too. End time is equal to the close time. So now let's compile again and we check if this is working. So we switch to the MetaTrader platform, and now under the navigator, under Expert Advisor, you should see your EA, your time range EA. If we just drag and drop it on the chart, you can switch to the Inputs tab. And now let's enter, for example, for the start time 1200, and for the range duration 300. So this should be 60 minutes after midnight, and this of course should give us a error message if we click OK now. And yeah, we see we get a error message. The EA is not starting. So let's test again. For example, if we put a negative value for the lot size, we also get a message. If we put 0 for the magic number, we also get a message. So our check for the inputs seems to work. Now if we do it like this, the predefined variables, the EA should start. Okay, we see here, top right corner, the EA is running. So for now, let's just remove it and we go back to the meta editor. Okay, so now we have our inputs, we check the inputs, and now we can define a few global variables we need for this EA. So let's just copy this comment and create another section here, and we call it global variables. And all the variables for the range, we will put them together in a structure. So we just write structure. The structure is named range structure. And here we now can define different variables of different type. So the first one would be the start time of the range. So this is a datetime type. Start time. We also have a datetime for the end time. So this is later the calculated time for the current range. So that's why we use a end time and not the duration. And also we need a close time. Close time. Then of course we want the high and the low of the range. So this would be of type double. High, double, low. Now we also need a flag if we are inside the range. So this would be of type Boolean. Flag entry. Let's call it just flag entry. We need a flag for the high breakout. And also the same for a low breakout. Okay, and we also want to define a constructor for the structure. So we just write range structure. And here we just predefine our variables. So for example, start time, and then in brackets the value. And the next one would be the end time. Then we predefine a close time. So this is just because if we define the structure later, we use it in a variable, all these members here of the structure are predefined with these values here. So for the high, we will write 0. For the low, we will write a big number. And now also the flag entry is false at the start, and the flag high breakout is also false, and the low breakout is also false. Okay, so now we write the brackets like this, and now the structure is complete. We compile, we have no errors, perfect. Okay, and also what you should do is to add a comment after each variable. Maybe I scroll up a little bit so you can see, and my face cam is not in the way. So you should add a comment after each variable. So let's do this real quick. Start of the range, end of the range, close time high of the range, low of the range, flag if we are inside the range, and here flag if a high breakout occurred, and also flag if a low breakout occurred. So you also see these comments when you are using the structure later. So now we can define a variable of the type range structure here, and we just call it range. And now if we compile, and if you use the range variable now and press dot, you see all the members of the structure. And here at the end, you also see the comment from each variable. So that's pretty handy, and you know what the variable is for. Okay, so and now we need a few more variables, and one of the mql5 mql tick type, and it's the previous tick, and also of the mql tick type a variable called last tick. And for our trades to open and close, we also use the trade class in this EA. So we write C trade and we call the variable trade. And in order for this to work, we of course need to include the C trade class. So we copy this code section here, paste it, we call it include, and now we need to write hashtag include, and the directory of the C trade class is, I think, trade /trade.mqh. Let's compile and see. Perfect. Okay, so now we can use the trade variable. We have a range variable of our structure, and we also have two variables of mql tick type. Okay, so the next part would be to code the actual logic of the EA in the onTick function, but I think we will do this in the next part because this video is already pretty long. And if this video was helpful for you, you can leave a like. And if you don't want to miss the next part, you can subscribe to my channel. And any questions about mql5, about this EA, or in general about automated trading, you can just write a comment, and I will see you in the next video. Bye.